Chapter 7. So, remember last week, Astra had landed on that, or had got sucked into another spaceship, and now all the Ploglites are going to go try to steal all the stuff off of Astra's spaceship, and she needs to figure out how to save them, or help them, because now she's trapped. Ploglite 2 and Pluto stood looking at Astra. "Well, let's get on with it," grumbled Ploglite 2. "Otherwise, there'll be no spoons left for us." "What is it with you lot and spoons?" asked Astra. "Spoons are the most valuable thing on Quirrell," said Ploglite 2, looking shocked that anyone could be so ignorant. "We Poglites are a wise and ancient civilization, but we have never managed to develop spoon technology, so we rely on the spoons we can gather from the other races. That's why we 7 ventured along this voyage. We shall return home rich as rich Ploglites, our pockets bulging with spoons." He grabbed the collar of Astra's spacesuit and started to detach her helmet. But as the helmet came off, Mammoth, who had been nestled all this time against Astra's chest, popped out through the suit's wide neck hole and wobbled up into the air. The eye stalks of the two Ploglites craned to follow him. Their wide eyes grew still wider, and they turned purple with excitement. "Look," said Ploglite 2. "It's Borknar himself," said Pluto. And before Astra knew what they were doing, they had knelt down before the floating mammoth. It wasn't easy for them to kneel in zero gravity, but they managed it. And there they knelt, their round bottoms poking up into the air, their many eyeballs swiveling to follow the wavery course that Mammoth took across the room, until Astra went after him and caught him. "He's only a cuddly toy," Astra said, feeling a little embarrassed, in case the aliens thought she was too old for cuddlies. "He's made of fur and stuffing and stuff. Look." She held Mammoth out and squeezed him, so that the Ploglites could see he was just a toy. They clambered to their feet again. "So, even these two-armed, two-eyed aliens have heard of Broknar, the sky beast," said Pluto. She went over to a hatch in the wall, an over-decorated hatch, covered in swirling patterns, precious stones, and shining star shapes made from old spoons, and opened it to reveal a shrine to Broknar. He had more eyes and legs than Mammoth, but he had a trunk and two long twirling tusks, so it was easy to see how the Ploglites had confused them. "Do all your people carry the image of Broknar with them?" asked Ploglite 2. "No," said Astra, "just me." "Ah, then that explains why Broknar saved you and left all the others to sleep on the hole while we stole their spoons," said Pluto. "Salvaged their spoons, Pluto, not stole. Sorry, Ploglite 2, but if Broknar chose to save her, he will be angry if we throw her out of the airlock. Great will be his wrathful trumpetings, and his mighty tentacles will stomp our spoon collections." Both Ploglites flushed purple with fear. "What shall we do?" asked Ploglite 2. "We must not harm her. Let's leave her here. The captain can decide what to do with her." "Good idea." They bundled Astra into one of the empty lockers and shut the door. After a moment, Pluto opened the door and handed her a plastic globe filled with something purple. "A nice, nourishing ball of gloop," she said, "in case you get hungry." Then she closed the door again. Astra sat in the shadows. She looked at the globe Pluto had given her. The stuff inside, it slopped about stickily, looking as if someone had mashed up a load of fat purple worms, and not even done it very well, because some of them still seemed to be wriggling. She supposed this must have been Ploglit's idea of a tasty snack. She hoped she would never get hungry enough to feel like eating it, but she put it into the pocket of her front spacesuit just in case. She heard the clumping footfalls as Pluto and Ploglite 2 went stomping off to join their friends who were probably pulling her ship to pieces by now. She tried the door, but it was locked. She looked around the inside of her locker for something that might help her escape. A few bits and pieces were stuffed between the narrow shelves at the back or floated around her, tethered on hooks on the walls. But bits and pieces of what? They could have been machinery or works of art or sleeping pets for all she knew. Then, just as she was admitting to herself that she was stuck there until the Ploglites returned, there was a click, and the door opened. At first, Astra thought it had opened of its own accord. She peeked out. But the hold of the Ploglite ship was still and silent. Then she noticed something like a long strand of black spaghetti laid across the floor in front of her. It led to the plastic jar where the nameless horror lived. So that's who had opened the door. The spaghetti tentacles withdrew and the nameless horror came glooping out of its vat. It oozed across the deck toward her. Oh no, thought Astra. Now that the plug lights have cleared off, it's definitely going to eat me. She braced herself against the locker wall and then sprang out as far and fast as she could through the air. Above the horror's growling tentacles, she flew graceful as an acrobat. Her helmet, which Pluto and Pluglight had taken off, bobbed against the grubbly ceiling like a lost balloon after a party. She grabbed it and kicked off from a fat bit of duct and went hurtling back the other way. The nameless horror groped and snatched at her with long black tentacles like licorice bootlaces. She avoided all of them and flung herself through the monkey ship toward the open airlock. Behind her, the gloopy bubbling voice of the horror rose. She thought it was going to try to form words, but there were no handy plug lights standing about with their translating machine switched on, so she could not understand it. Fastening her helmet as she went, she dived at the airlock. But she didn't really need the helmet, of course, because the plug light's collecting bag was still attached, forming a tunnel of air between the two ships. Plug light robots were busy there, herding the drifting clutter into bundles and tying the bundles together with brown hairy string. They didn't notice Astra as she went blundering through the bag. They didn't even notice when she kicked off from one of their floating, cluttering islands, leaving it spinning like a scruffy merry-go-round. In the Pluglight ship, the nameless horror fumbled a locker open and pulled out an empty Pluglight spacesuit. It snuck in a bit of itself inside and switched on the translator with the tentacle. "Astra," it said, "come back." But by that time, Astra was already groping her way through her own ship's airlock into the shadows of the cake-haunted, Pluglight-ridden corridors. Chapter 8.